Hello, hello. Welcome.
Hey,
Welcome, everyone. We are interviewing Ben Smith today as part of Choice Point Productions feature film Unseen Scars. And I'm just super excited to be welcoming you today, Ben. You've been someone that I've known for quite a number of years, but just a really inspiring and phenomenal individual. So thank you for being with us today.
thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you. And yes, we've been friends for a long time, and it's been so fun to watch you grow. I'm so happy to be here talking to you.
And I am as well. And I just want to share a little bit about Ben for those of people that don't know you. You are a very powerful writer, speaker, and facilitator and mentor for men. And you also have a foundation, called the Goliath Foundation, which is all about ending bullying.
Ending
And
bullying.
yeah, I'm just gonna go through because there's such a long list of things that you've done. You've been a boxer, a wrestler, a bodybuilder, a successful personal trainer. You've mentored youth. You've acted in various commercials, independent movies. And what I really love, Ben, is like you've also had such a powerful life experience. You've had such a powerful journey of navigating trauma, mental health issues, all kinds of circumstances. And you've come out of that, being an incredible role model to other people. And this is something that I think is so powerful to, just to acknowledge today. And I know that your book, Killing Goliath, is a reflection of that, right? Your journey.
Absolutely.
So we're here to dive into hearing more from you and hearing about your journey and really hearing about the lessons that you've learned along the way, because in our film Unseen Scars we are examining really powerful themes that people go through when it comes to experiencing trauma and the impact of trauma and how we navigate that recovery process. And we are mainly focusing the storyline on military veterans and the process of coming home. And that's kind of been the focus of the film, but it doesn't just stop there, because obviously trauma is something that we all can experience in life, and it's something that does have a huge impact, and how we navigate our recovery is not always very easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give the floor over to you and just ask you, just to start off by sharing with me what's made you so passionate about mentoring men, about creating the Goliath Foundation, about writing this book. Like, what is it that really drives you to do what you do?
Well, I mean, before I tell a little bit of too much of my story, I will say when I was 15, I promised myself when I was 15, because by the time I was 15, I'd already been arrested 3 times, and I'd been kicked out of several schools, and I was a troubled kid, and all these kind of things. And the judge told me, I wasn't going to make it. He told me I wasn't going to make it. I was going to end up dead or in jail by the time I was 20. And I promised myself that one day, if I got out of the situation I was in, I was going to have something to say. It took me a long time.
Mm.
So I'm basically honoring my promise to myself as a 15-year-old kid that if I made it out of this, I was gonna share, I was gonna help others.
That's
So
really
yeah,
powerful.
so
Yeah,
basically I'm just honoring my promise to myself as a 15-year old kid, right?
incredible. Yeah, yeah. So you made a choice back then to be able to help others
Why
when you,
I
yeah.
when I still had a long way to go, right? I mean, I was a 15-year-old kid. I didn't know anything, but so it took a long time before I really had something of value to say and share, and enough life experience to just say, okay, I think I've got a bit of a handle on this. And then it's like, well, so now I'm basically doing that. It's like, okay, I think I know I have enough experience to help others, especially people like me who are like really suffering with, self-loathing and addiction or whatever. And I know, I know the path I took to find this place where I'm just like incredibly happy. I feel like fulfilled. I'm excited every day to wake up, and I have been for a long time. And I feel like I can really help others to get there too.
Incredible. Yes, I feel like your journey is so relatable, I think, to people who are suffering, because you've gone through so many different experiences and you've come out the other end really, as you say, happy and successful and powerful and such a great role model. So tell us a little bit about your story in terms of, what you went through in, I know this a lot, but just in terms of some of the traumas that you've experienced, the difficulties, and how difficult it was, I guess, to be in those places.
Well, I think for me, because I was adopted, I was born in Seattle, but I was adopted and brought to Vancouver, and that's where I grew up. I grew up in Vancouver, East Vancouver, and just my experience growing up was like extreme violence and extreme racial prejudice, and I had a lot of other problems too. I had learning disabilities, and so I was behind in school. I had to get special classes. I had really severe allergies. So I had lots of different health problems. I had metatarsus varus, so I had to learn to walk by pivoting on braces. So I had all these challenges, but the ones that shaped me the most really were the violence and uh, and the racial discrimination. Like probably like I've told people this before, or I've said this before, but probably from the time I was like, I don't know, 7, 6, 7, 8, right up until I was 15 years old, I probably got beat up and called a nigger almost every single day, like,
Mm.
and multiple times sometimes, and it was brutal. It was in my own home, it was in my neighborhood, it was at school, it was everywhere. It was relentless, and so I had a lot of PT. I didn't know what PTSD was, right, until a couple of years ago, really. But I was like, I have that. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. Even when I started dating Shar 20 years ago, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just be and I didn't really realize what it was. It's from all the years of trauma, and then I was a bouncer for a long time. I started bouncing when I was 17, and rough bars, fighting, and drugs, and all these kinds of things, and this all creates this trauma, right? That I didn't realize it was trauma until I kind of started to release it. We always talk about releasing pain and moving men past pain, and and I didn't realize how much pain and trauma I had until I started to really release it. Like, wow, that's heavy. So that's basically where I'm coming from. Is I
Mm.
mean, I felt at 15 like I was a total absolute failure, failing in everything, failing in school, failing in everything, and then I kind of got myself together from the time I was 15 till I was 21 or so. I got myself together. I committed myself to bodybuilding. This was going to be the thing that I was going to do and show the world. I remember my mantra was like, I'm going to show the world that I matter. I'm going to show the world that I matter, because I didn't feel like I mattered. And so that was like the mantra. And it was good for a while, but it wasn't backed by a real sense of self-assurance. It was just a determination to show people. And then I was a pretty young dad. I was a father when I was 20. And I ended up going through a really nasty custody battle when I was like 22. And and it was super nasty. It was like a year long, and I didn't see my daughter for the better part of a year, and I had to go to court several times, and it was a real struggle for me. And at the time, suffered a really bad work accident that almost crippled me, almost killed me actually, and my home was broken into and everything I had was stolen, and it was just a really bleak situation. But then I won my right to see my daughter, which I hadn't been able to see her for a better part of a year. And I was like, okay, finally the page is turned. And I went to pick her up one day, and she was gone. Like her mother just basically disappeared with her. And that was kind of the end for me. And that's when I really fell into a deep hole of self-loathing and drugs and violence, and I really wanted to die. And
Mm.
and I managed to pick myself out of that hole, and it was really a really deep hole. And every day I was just like, I just want this to end, but before it ends, I want somebody to pay. I want somebody to pay, because this was not fair. I should not have had to go through all this. I should not have been, this little, you know, nigger getting beat up every day. Nobody cares. Nobody seems to mind. Nobody wants to stop it. My daughter's taken from me, all this kind of stuff. I was like, somebody's going to pay. And so it was a really nasty situation, right? But I managed to claw myself out of that hole. And from it, I learned so much. I learned
Mm.
so much about the process of dealing with addiction, dealing with trauma, dealing with violence, dealing with loss. I had to rebuild a relationship with my daughter. I had to find her. I had to build. So I dealt with all these situations. And as I dealt with it, I was kind of making sense of things, slowly but surely, so that by the time I got, like 40, I kind of like, I could see all the patterns, and once I released all the pain, I was like, okay, I got this. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's so you've had, from what you're sharing, there's multiple aspects of trauma in your life, and different moments when you made choices to move forward instead of go further down. But I can hear that, you're kind of, as you say, the lowest point, I guess, when you felt like there's no hope, or you were at that
yeah.
edge, as you said, of feeling quite suicidal, was when, as you say, your daughter got taken away, and you were sort of completely hopeless, in despair at that moment. Is
I
that
had
kind
no
of the
home. I was basically
yeah.
homeless. I was, it's just everything that could go wrong was wrong. And and my mom was dying in the hospital. And I remember distinctly the night that my mom died. I was working in the bar. I was working in a nightclub. And I mean, again, I'm 23 or 24. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, somewhere in there. I think I might have been 24 by that part. Yeah, I was 24. But anyways, yeah, I mean, my mom, I'm working in a nightclub. I was sleeping on my dad's couch because I had nowhere else to go. And I went home to my dad's house at 3. So I went to my dad's house at 3 in the morning after working a shift at a nightclub. And he's like, your mom died tonight. I was like, ah. And I remember that was like one of the first shifts I made. I was like, mom only knew me because my last conversation with my mom was shortly after my daughter had been taken, and we had a huge screaming match, and I basically, just yeah, it was a horrible screaming match. So that night I was up all like I just couldn't sleep. I was like, man, my mom only knew me as a complete failure who lost her granddaughter. And I promised myself, I was like, you know what? Kind of like when I was 15, I said, I, I'm going to be better than this. And that's kind of, that night really was the first real shift where I was like, I kind of started on the path of healing.
Sounds like a
So,
powerful decision, that you decided that you're gonna be better than that circumstance, that isn't who you are. And I want to obviously just point that out, that moment, that decision that you made, began to change the trajectory of your life, what I'm hearing. And that's really powerful to I guess know that in that moment you can make that choice.
hmm well, what was so powerful for me too was that how quick it was, because I mean, it seemed like and I write about this in my book, but it seemed like one minute I was like, I was homeless, I was a drug addict, I was a drug dealer. I had all these things, but then once I made that decision that I'm gonna be more than this, and following with that was like, okay, I gotta. What do I want? I want to be happy. I want to see my daughter. I want to, just be a happy person. So then I all of a sudden I was like, okay, I'm not gonna argue so much. I need to find a way to, with my daughter's mom, when she started calling me, I tried to kind of be like, okay, what do you need from me? And I started to just kind of really do whatever it took to just find that peace and get along so I could have my daughter back in my life. And just everything happened so quick. And next thing I knew, it was like within a couple months, I'm living this great life. My daughter's back in my life. I'm happy again. And it happened so quick, but but I made that decision, a concrete decision. Like, I'm not going to be this person anymore.
Mm. It's really powerful that it begins with that choice. Um, what do you feel, what are the biggest lessons from your journey that looking back on it that you feel stand out the most?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is love. Like love is the basis of everything. You have to find a way to love yourself, and you have to learn to love other people, because love, I've learned, that whatever the problem is, love is the answer. Love is always the answer, and it starts with loving yourself. So, and
Mm,
for anybody who's like like in a real deep hole of self-loathing like I was, you have to find something to, you have to grasp onto hope that there could be a better day, hope that there could be something more. You could be something more. And the easiest way to do that I found, is to look within yourself and find things to love about yourself, you know
that's really powerful. And does that include forgiveness as well, forgiving yourself? Because I imagine,
well,
um,
forgiveness is huge.
yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, so that my life turned around at that point, but I still had a lot of trauma that I hadn't dealt with. I didn't deal with that till I was in my late 20s, or sorry, in my late 30s. So
Mm-hmm.
I held that for a long time, and I only really released all that pain when I had basically a mental breakdown. And I like, for like a month, I basically cried every day, and I just like, I had all this trauma, and I just cried and I cried and I cried. And as I was doing that, I was writing, I was journaling, and I was like, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? And why, like, why was I betrayed, or why was I this, or why was this that? And then it kind of transitioned to, I did the best I could. They did the best they could, and it was what it was. It made me stronger. It gave me wisdom. They loved me in their own way, and I just slowly went from just kind of regret and anger and to forgiveness of myself, forgiveness of other people. And once I had kind of done all that for like a whole month, and just crying and crying and writing and forgiving, and they did the best they could. They did the best they could. I did the best I could, and out of it, I became strong. That's one of my things, is I'm unbreakable. I know I'm unbreakable. So, I anchor myself to the fact that, I'm always happy. I'm always upbeat. I always feel excited about life, but one of the things is, I know within myself is that I'm unbreakable. So that's one of my anchors. I'm unbreakable. I know that I'm a loving person. I know I have compassion. So these things are inner qualities that I carry with me all the time, that nobody can take from me. And um they give me a sense of real self-assurance and confidence, and they make me like myself. So if you take everything away from me, I still have that feeling of being unbreakable, of feeling compassionate, of being a loving person, of being wise enough to have made sense of my life. And so I anchor my joy is anchored to real deep feelings of self-assurance.
Mm.
And that came from releasing a lot of the pain, the regret, and forgiving everybody, including myself, is so
Mm-hmm.
important. Until some people do that, they will never be able to they will never be able to release everything, because it's always
Yeah.
like you're always holding on to that tension.
I love what you're saying. It's incredibly, it's so important, like what forgiveness actually is all about. And it's such a powerful process of releasing, as you say. And what I love as well, what you're talking about, is how your pain can be transformed into your power, you know, and how your wounds can be turned into your wisdom, and that those experiences that are incredibly traumatic can shape us to become very powerful and loving and um, uplifting human beings if we choose to see it that way. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and obviously you've been, you know, your life is a testament to that, because you have made that humongous transformation. So it's a really big, yeah, honor, obviously, to hear you share that, because I think for many people, they may feel that, you know, maybe I don't have the courage to do all that, or it's too difficult, or it's too hopeless. And you're here, you know, saying that it's not, right? It begins with that
Hmm.
choice. Um, so I really love that. And I want to also just talk a little bit about this these paradigms of masculinity that exist in our world, because you know you're sharing very openly and vulnerably about your experiences, but I'm wondering if there was a time earlier in your life when that was maybe felt quite difficult, or it felt like maybe there was some um, fear around being able to talk about these things, because this is something that, you know, I think for a lot of men, there's kind of this fear of like, I have to be strong, I have to be, I can't show any weakness, I can't talk about my struggles. If I ask for help, it's going to make me look weak. So tell me a little bit about your experience with that, and whether or not you experienced any of that as well.
Well, I mean, I experienced lots of that because I was a boxer. I was around like drug dealers, gangsters. You know, I was around killers. You know, and so I saw this like lots of faces of this masculinity. But what I learned is that everybody, like, we're all human beings. We all want love. We all want compassion. We all want people to understand us. And if we don't feel like we can get it, then we reach out for it. But one of the problems is talking about these paradigms of masculinity is people don't understand what real strength is. Real strength is faith. Real strength is love, compassion, and faith. Because to to use physical strength and aggression, that's weakness. That's what that shows, is that you don't believe in the power of love, and you don't believe in the power of compassion, and you don't trust in yourself. It's hard to hear if you're a masculine guy, who's built this solid image of masculinity. But the truth is, real strength is love and compassion, and because you know, and actually, I have this little string here. Like, so hopefully this will work. I don't know if it will, but like
Yeah.
I like to think of it like this. So this string right here, this is physical strength, is like this, right? But it can be broken, right? You broke it. But once you have, so you have physical strength, but then when you start to put like compassion in there, it gets a lot stronger. Once you start to put love on there, you
Mm.
loop love on there, it gets even stronger. Once you loop compassion or community in there, it gets even stronger. And then once you start to loop, sense of purpose, self assurance, and you loop all these things, eventually you have this super strong, like, I can't break this anymore, right? It looks
Mm.
small, but I can't break it anymore because it's looped. with all these layers of real strength, which is love, compassion, self-assurance, and this and that, right? All these inner feelings, but it starts with it's all love based. And then
Mm,
once you have
love
this
that.
strength, this rope that's super strong, and you're and it's binded, it's that now you have something that can lift other people up, and that's real strength, right? You can use this rope to lift people up. With the physical strength, you can't do much with
Mm-hmm.
it. All you can do
Mm-hmm.
is push people away. You push people away. You push people
Mm,
away, but you can't do anything because it breaks.
mm-hmm.
You have to braid for yourself a rope that's strong, based on love. Because once you do that, I mean, that's what Gandhi did, and he changed the world, really.
He did. He did. I love it. It's beautiful because it's just exactly that. It's about seeing that actually some of this conditioning that gets perpetuated, in the media, in the neighborhoods that you grow up, and when you watch other boys or your, fathers, or certain communities that display certain types of strength, you learn, don't you? You internalize that to be like, well, that's what strength means. And
Hmm.
actually, what's really powerful is to realize that that is just, yeah, is there's such a deeper power in vulnerability and love and
Oh,
compassion, as you're saying, and the courage to do that, right? Because
for
sometimes it
sure.
requires courage to be vulnerable and to share something that is really, opening your heart and letting people see what's really going on the inside, rather than kind of wearing that mask, that
Hmm.
protective shield, right? That um, feels safer in the moment, but actually in the longer term, it really doesn't
Hmm.
provide what we're looking for. So I think this is really powerful because it's also something where we are speaking to in our film as well, to really start changing that conversation. Like, what does it mean to be a hero? What does it mean to be a strong man? And you're saying that it's so much more than just the physical strength, that actually opening up and talking and showing your heart is is what real strength is.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. It's like, man, anybody can push somebody down. Anybody can knock somebody down. But real strength is to get knocked down, get up and say, you know what, I I'm gonna love you and I'm gonna hug you. And if you push me down again, I'm gonna get up again, and I'm gonna keep getting up until you learn to love me too.
Mm.
There's nothing you could do that would ever be more strong, that would ever be a greater display of strength than that. Just to say, you slap me, slap the other side. I can take it, and I'll keep taking it until you get too tired to slap me, and you will open yourself up to loving me. That's real strength, and that's the real kind of strength that changes the world, that changes people's perceptions, and lifts other people up. Because
Mm.
physical strength is useless, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only is it useless, it's counterproductive.
Yeah, yeah. As it creates, yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful what you're saying, because it's all about creating that intimacy as well between people, right? That connection on that deeper level, which only comes from that vulnerability, where we take off the
Yeah.
masks and we just share what's really going on the inside, including our fears, our insecurities, our struggles, our pain, and know
Hmm.
that we're okay as human beings for having those things. It doesn't mean we're less than, or we should be ashamed of it, or there's something wrong with us. I think
Yeah.
really, really knowing that that's okay is important, because we all have those things.
Sure. And yeah, the reward of opening yourself up is it's like it's like courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to be afraid and still do what you need to do. That's really what courage is, right? It's not the absence of fear. And same thing with strength. Strength is not Strength doesn't come from the outside. It always comes from the inside. It always comes from love. It's always based on love. And nothing is stronger than knowing yourself enough to know that, you can, you're not influenced by all these outside stimulus or opinions of you, you know, because you're anchored to what you know within yourself. Like nobody could ever take that away. Look at Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison, and nobody could ever break him. Nobody could ever take away his courage and his love and his compassion. Dude, that's like what's stronger than that?
Mm,
You know, what's
yes.
stronger than that? And that's love based from
Mm-hmm.
inside.
100%. Yes. Yes. So we all have a lot of, we all have to ask ourselves those questions, I think, when we're faced with different situations about how we want to show up. How do we want to model strength? And that kind of takes me to a question around examining just like when someone is in a place where they really are at a very low point, or they're really, really struggling, and they just have no idea, like, where do I begin? Like, I want to change. I want things to be different. I don't want to keep experiencing, the impact of this trauma. What would you say is the first step that someone can take to start moving in a different direction, to start that journey of recovery?
Well, again, from my experience, I think that you need to have something you have to have hope. You need to have something to believe in. You need to know that if other people did it, you can get there too, you know? So you have to believe, like, you have to have hope. And, and this is another thing that's a little bit, a lot of people don't recognize, all the time, but you could be anywhere you could be any place in the world. You could be any place in your life. You could be in the deepest hole like imaginable. And if you just go find anybody, even an animal, and you display compassion and love and generosity to that other being, you feel that. You get it. So if you had nothing else, you always have the ability to express love. And the more, I mean, it's a universal law. The more you express love, the more you get it back. So if love is the greatest power in the universe, which we believe it is, you just keep giving love out, you keep getting it back, and all of a sudden you start climbing, climbing, climbing until you feel so good about yourself because you're accessing this universal power that could change worlds. And all you need to do is express it out, love yourself, love others, and it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. It keeps coming back.
Indeed, yes. The power of love, and making choices that are being fueled by love. So I think, yeah, based on what you're sharing, that this whole choice making process, I think, is so important to just highlight that when love drives your choices, for example, right, as you're saying, you get a very different outcome than when fear drives your choices. So love is when we choose love, we will be able to create solutions to our problems that feel very different than when we're operating out of fear. And as you're
Absolutely.
saying, the simplest way to start experiencing love is to actually start giving love, start loving people, start loving yourself.
Yeah.
and and that's really powerful, because I'm a big believer that we can transform our lives just through the power of choice, and knowing that we always have a choice in any
Mhm.
situation, in any given circumstance. And that includes making the choice to ask for support, ask for help, make a courageous choice to admit that sometimes we can't do it on our own. We have to go find support where support is available. And as you say, also love ourselves enough to be able to look after ourselves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
be able to ask ourselves that question: what would be the most loving thing I can do for myself? So I think it's easier said than done, because sometimes when you're in that really, really dark place, you're not always in that emotional state of love or courage or faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it actually takes that conscious effort in that moment to say, I want to choose differently, or I want to move towards love, or I want to move towards faith, and just have that desire that then opens up the possibility to step into that and begin to move towards that. So your story is incredibly powerful, because you've made lots of choices in your life, and you've felt that, right? You felt sort of the where you went wrong and what was maybe driving your choices when you weren't experiencing happiness, and that probably was coming from pain or anger or fear. And then when you started making different choices that were based in love, courage, faith, life began to look and feel very different.
Very quickly. It happened so
Yeah.
quickly.
Mm.
You know, like I'm gonna tell a quick little story, but I remember, you know, the first, because I hadn't seen my daughter for after she was taken from me. I hadn't seen her for, you know, quite some time. And then I started to get phone calls, and they agreed to meet me at in Princeton. I lived in Vancouver, in Princeton, so it's 3.5 hour drive. So the first time I was going to see my daughter after not seeing her for quite a long time, I was so broken at that point. I've been so broken, and so I remember I was working in the nightclubs, I was bouncing, and I was knocking so many people out. I was like super aggressive. But when I realized I was going to go see my daughter, I thought she would love me anymore because she would forget about me and all these things. I was so scared, and I remember asking my dad. My dad drove, and I'm a grown man. I'm 24 years old, and you know, I'm a drug addict, and I'm all these different things. But I'm like, you know, my dad drove the whole way, and I just sat in the car, and I tried not to let him see me cry, and I was just like, God, you know, and it turned out my daughter did love me, and the fact that she loved me, you know, I remember going into the Baskin Robbins after not seeing her for a while, and I was waiting for them to arrive, and I was like, oh my God, my daughter's not gonna love me anymore, and 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 when she came through the door, she's only like 4 years old. She saw me, she ran, and she leaped into my arms, and it was like, it was like so, like that feeling of love, and but it all came because I just surrendered. You know, I surrendered, and my dad had to take me. I'm a grown man. My dad had to take me because I couldn't, you know. So it's basically asking for help. You know, because before that, I didn't really ask my dad for help. I mean, I asked him for a place to stay because I was homeless. So I was sleeping on his couch. But, you know, he knew, I didn't even ask him really. He knew that I couldn't do this on my own. So he drove, and he kept driving. He kept driving until I had the strength to do it on my own. And so you have to be able to let people help you because people want to help you. But if you're drowning, if you're so focused on the problem, you sometimes can't see it. But when you open yourself up to like, what is it I want? And in that situation, that story, what I wanted was to have a relationship with my daughter again. And so I that kind of made me surrender. And I think for people that are how, you know, you have to focus on what is it you want. You want to be happy. You want to experience love. You want to experience all these things, and you have to be open to receiving help because people want to help you.
Yes, exactly. That sometimes can be the hardest choice, right? Is to let people in, and not isolate. And when you're kind of thinking about, I guess, family members or friends or partners that are seeing someone who's experiencing trauma, or who's isolating themselves, or who's really struggling and they don't know what to do, you know, how do they reach that person? How do they help them? How do they support them? What would you say is kind of a way to gain access to that person or to be able to help them open up and ask for support.
I think honestly, the most, again, going from my own experience and observations, the most important thing is that you're there. You're there. You make sure that they always know you're there, and eventually, um, uh, you have to be consistent, right? You have to, if you love somebody or if you care about somebody, you just need to, you know, like again, around that same time, I keep using these stories from my life, but around that time, I had one friend who, when I was like at my lowest point, again, I'm working in a nightclub, I'm a drug dealer, I'm all these things, but he kept night after night after night, he kept coming by to see me. He was like, hey, you want to go talk? You want to go talk? You want to go? I kept brushing him off. I brushed my dad off. I brushed my friend. I brushed everybody off. But the consistency of it, and eventually I said, yes, let's go talk. And then it was like just like with my dad, my dad eventually was just like, okay, dad, drive me to go see my daughter. So even if it doesn't seem like people are hearing you, or I think the most important thing is that you are consistent and you let people know that you're there. Because if they're drowning, if they're really drowning in real hopelessness, you need to just keep trying to focus on things that will give them a sense of hope, like things can be better, or oh, look what a great day it is, or whatever, right? Like tomorrow could be even better day. And don't be fake about it, but be honest about it. There's like, look at what you have, look what you have, be consistent with that so that people can, because that's what it's going to take, right? You need to get people to realize that there is hope. No matter how bad your situation is, things can be better. But you need to make the choice. You need to open yourself up to see it.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. Yeah, yeah, 100% echo what you're saying, Ben. And just, I guess, hearing, when you step into that journey of making those choices, making those changes, moving towards recovery, moving towards asking for support. I know that that isn't always something that you do, it's not something you do once and then you sort of never go back again, right? There's certain practices that maintain that well-being and maintain that health and maintain your happiness. So I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about what you know to be your practices that you share with others that provide you with that consistent place of being happy, fulfilled,
Yeah,
confident. What are some of the things that you do?
for me, for a long time, like for 10 years, I always make sure I give myself, no matter how busy I am in the morning or how busy my day is, I give myself enough time to just wake up and just chill out for a while. And while I'm chilling out, you know, you can call it meditation. Sometimes I get into a meditative state, but for the most part, I start my day. I go, you know what? Today is a new day, and it's a great day, and the sun is shining, or the rain is falling, or there's snow outside, or whatever. That's awesome, and the fireplace is crackling, or whatever. I got my hot cup of coffee. That's a big one for me. Is like I love coffee. I got my hot cup of coffee, and and so I start the day off with like just the simplest things, even waking up like, oh, the bed is so comfy. And then I go get my coffee. My coffee is awesome. The couch is so great to sit on, or whatever. And then I start to, life is good, and I just let my mind wander to all the things about that make me feel good, like happy to be alive, and to start a new day, and all the things that, and it leads to, and I really, especially before, I would really layer these things about like, oh, I love that I'm so strong. I love that you know, I, I learned so much in my life. I love that I had all these opportunities to learn and understand things. I love how funny I am. I love my, well, I think I'm funny.
You
Other
are
people
funny.
but
Yeah.
I love my compassion. I love my
Mhm.
this. I love my that. And I basically, for years, I basically start my day on the easiest good note I can, and then I just keep layering and layering and layering. with all these reasons why I feel good about myself. And then it just gradually transitions to, I feel good about, about this person. I feel good about that person. I'm going to go to work and this is going to be fun or that's going to be fun. And it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle of just feeling good about things. And it becomes a habit. And then,
Mm.
I often tell people that, you're, the number one thing people can do to be consistently happy, like what I do, is you wake up, and for me, I always wake up happy. But um, you find a line, and above the line is happiness, and below the line is unhappiness. So your job, I think, in life is to always learn where that line is, and am I happy or am I not happy, and just do whatever it takes to stay above that line. And as you start to do it, even a little bit, you start to recognize the difference between happiness and unhappiness. And I think a lot of people don't even know that. It's just like it's like somebody says something, oh, I feel good. Somebody says something, they feel bad. Oh, I feel bad. And they're up and down, and they have no control. But it's like once you start to recognize and really kind of resonate by taking that time in the morning of what happiness feels like, then throughout your day you start to go like, I find myself because I insulted somebody or I criticized somebody, that kind of started me dipping below my line. Okay, I better find somebody to compliment or find something to forgive myself. And now I'm back above the line, and well, I'm getting upset in traffic. But you know what? I got good music in the car, right? And so you start to understand the wave that you go through in life, and then it's easy to kind of know because you started your day off in a good note. I'm above the line. Ooh, I dipped a little bit. Okay, I got to get back above the line. Eventually, you hardly ever dip below the line
Mm.
because you're so aware of what it feels like. But most
Mm-hmm.
people are so distracted by life that they don't realize that I don't feel good. It's just life to them. But you
Mm-hmm.
should feel good all the time. You should be. I mean, you're not always going to be at 100% happiness, but you should never be less than feeling pretty good to be alive and pretty at ease and pretty joyful. You should never feel bad.
Mm.
You know,
Yes, and this is such powerful stuff because we can so easily sometimes forget that we have again that choice and that power to reflect and ask ourselves those questions and really get conscious of what are the things that bring me down and what are the things I need to do to bring me back up, or even just how can I look at the situation from a different perspective, as you're saying, so that I can appreciate the things about it that are going to make me feel happier in that moment rather than focus on what's wrong, right? So as soon as we
yeah,
focus on what's wrong, it's going to bring us down. But if we look at, okay, but what is good about this situation, or what can I learn from this, or is this going to matter in 1 year or 5 years time? No. So why am I getting so upset in the moment? And that's it. It's this commitment to your own happiness that I'm hearing is so important, and developing these practices as you're doing, in the morning, as you have this time for yourself where you get to look at appreciating everything, like even the simple things
hmm
that make you feel good. And of course, where we place our attention, that we just amplify that, that feeling gets amplified, isn't it? Because then you find more and more things to appreciate, and then
absolutely,
all of a sudden life feels incredible. So
yeah,
and that's something we can do very simply, as you're sharing, Ben, by directing our attention consciously rather than
hmm
waking up and thinking, well, what do I got to do today? Oh, I've got to do this and this, let me focus on all the problems. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
hold on a sec, let me take the time to give myself the gift of appreciating what's here already. That's really good, and all the other stuff can I can deal with afterwards, right?
absolutely. People,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's a funny thing in life. People think everything is so important, and everything is so important. Nothing's really very important. The only thing that's really important is, I mean, people could argue this all they want, but we're all here for a finite amount of time. So really, your bills and this deadline and this meeting or whatever, you know, they seem important to you, but they're really not that important. So the most important thing is that you recognize that you got one shot at this life. You got one shot in this body, and and try to milk as much joy out of it as you can, because guaranteed, I'm not there yet, but guaranteed when I'm in my last. Yeah, so I think when you're, for all of us, when we're on our last, we're breathing our last breaths in this life, we're not going to worry about the little, the bills that didn't get paid, or the meetings that we screwed up or missed, or all these things. We're going to worry about, like, did I really milk this life for all the joy I possibly could, and all the love and compassion I possibly could, because that's the only thing that's going to matter. All the other stuff isn't going to matter.
So
You know?
true, so true. Yeah, so we just need sometimes to take a step back and prioritize, don't we? What really
Yeah.
matters, what really matters. And our joy is yeah, key. That's what we're
I'll
here for.
I'll just say this, add this little thing. When I think about boxing, people always ask me about boxing, and I never ever think about the fights, the actual matches I won, and the trophies I won, or the whatever. All I ever think about is the experience, the friends I made, the trips I had, the the training, the passion of it.
Mm.
The trophies and the medals and this and that. They don't. I never think about that. It's only the journey of my boxing and how much fun I had.
I completely agree. It's exactly that. It's we need to kind of know that we're going to remember the memories, not the things.
Yeah.
So I really love that. And just like, as a final thing, like what would be, I guess, if you had like one message, Ben, to sort of leave everyone with, what would that be? What's kind of the key thing that you want people to know?
Love yourself. Just really learn to love yourself, because the more you love yourself, the more you can love others. And the more you love others, the more you'll get back. And it's just this perpetuating cycle. But it all starts by loving yourself.
Amen. Yes, yes, that's it. It's the foundation of everything. So I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time with us, and for your journey, and your lessons. I know that someone out there needs to hear this, and it's going to make a difference. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk, because I really do feel like, again, I'm honoring that promise to myself as a 15-year-old. If I can help people, and if I can help people live better lives and release pain, um, I'm a happy guy. I mean, I'm doing what I promised myself I would do, what I think I was put on this earth to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to reach out to you, learn more about you, learn about your book and the projects that you're doing? Where's the best place they can find you?
TheGoliathFoundation.com. They can go there, and yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Okay,
Can
so
reach out.
the Goliathfoundation.com. So we'll put a
That's
link
right.
up. Yeah, we'll put a link up
Yeah.
so people can find you and connect with you. And I'd love to invite you maybe to a future conversation, and just really appreciate you again. So thank you so much, Ben. It's been such an honor.
Thank you. It's been an honor for me too.